We talk a lot about what AI can do, but not enough about what's happening behind the scenes. Because behind every smart system is a tangle of processes, platforms, and performance metrics that need just as much attention as the algorithm itself. That's where observability comes in. Today, we're digging into the hidden layer behind AI and what actually makes these systems perform. Stay reliable and avoid going rogue without unexpected costs, latency spikes, or user experience failures. Observability isn't just a buzzword. It's how we keep AI accountable. Joining me are two people who live at the crossroads of AI and infrastructure. Manoj Khabe, VP of Observability and FinOps at Converge, and Arthur de Magalhaes, AI and Automation Architect at IBM. Together, we'll explore how observability is shaping next-gen data centers, how it intersects with user experience, and why ignoring it could leave an organization flying blind. Welcome to Edge of IT. Gentlemen, we're so glad to have you both here. Manoj, Arthur, good to be with you today. Arthur, to kick things off, tell us a little bit about your role and share something about AI that has surprised you.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me here, Jonathan. It's a pleasure to join you and Manoj. So my name is Arthur de Magalhaes. I work at IBM. Been here for about 17 years, various different roles through WebSphere and AI Ops, and most recently with Instana. My role is primarily as an AI and automation architect. So ensuring that we observe AI, that we leverage AI for a lot of our observability use cases as well. And the automation side, making sure that we pair all the insights that AI gets with the automation side. So pretty exciting role. One thing that surprised me about AI, it probably has to do with the user experience of the content it generates. You know, when we look at code, it's pretty self-explanatory. You take the code, maybe fix it, and that's fine. But if you try to do something like, from an architect perspective, generate a diagram, you see that the content's there, but it's all over the place. The user experience, and it lacks that human kind of touch of looking at it with a design lens and looking that, wow, these icons don't really fit here. The colors doesn't really match. I found that was an interesting thing that AI hasn't caught up to yet.
What sort of things are still taking up a lot of your time, Arthur?
I find it is with a lot of the, I guess, human-to-human engagement that we haven't been able to automate or AI help. So, it's easy to automate when you need something done by various teams. You automate tasks for everybody. But then they get the task and they ask you questions about how do I prioritize this, or, there's a sensitive situation where team members are leaving. There's a lot of times where you need to be really the human with emotions, right? Have empathy for what others are going through. And that's part you can't automate. You got to have that meeting, got to have the one-on-one or that chat. So that takes up a lot of time, really valuable time, but you need to spend that. You can't automate or have AI do that human-to-human interaction.
Speaking of human-human interaction, one of the people I love working with most is Manoj. So Manoj, I'm finally glad to have you on the podcast. As the VP of Observability here at Converge, you've got a front row seat to how things are happening at scale across in the industry and our clients. When it comes to AI and observability, what are those responsibilities that you cover?
Yeah, sure, Jonathan. First of all, thank you very much for having me on this podcast. Super exciting and super fun. I always love to talk about observability. Being one of my roles at Converge Technology Solutions, I'm here as Vice President for Observability, Automation, and FinOps, working for Converge for 13 years now. And I'm very passionate about solving customer challenges in digital transformation journeys using technology. Use technology as an enabler to solve the challenges. And I think the first time I got kind of introduced to AI was it was a aha moment for me. I think it was probably 2.5 years ago. I was visiting a touristy place with my family, and it was obviously we like to go out and venture out, and it was a new place for us within the United States, and I couldn't recollect the name, but we were trying to figure out, hey, we have a day basically layover between two cities, and what do you want to do? And we just went into ChatGPT and asked the question, hey, in this city, we would like to, we are here from 9 to 5, and you give us the recommendations to things to do. And pretty much voila, right? We got the recommendations, but moreover, we were like, hey, you know what? We just, for us, sake of it, we just asked, hey, you know what? How do we go about it? And then literally it pulled the directions from places to places for us and basically laid out an itinerary. And that was like a mind-blowing experience for me. And I could see the power of AI in how it can help humans to act intelligently, use the data. And I think that's where I saw, hey, there is a huge opportunity in front of us as a technologist to use AI to its advantages. I even my our day-to-day IT projects that I work on, I see a lot of other good use cases. A couple of use. One thing which I like to always talk about, when we are deploying these observability solutions for our clients, oftentimes, these are repetitive incidents, and most of the time, it's a repetitive time spent on doing the same thing, and being able to bring the historical context and what was done in history and then apply that information as a context to solve the problem in real time. So these are experiences from your personal life to your work life. I think I see a huge potential for all of us to start adopting AI in your journey.
Indeed. I love that example of your family, right? And also at work. In both cases, right? You've AI is looking back at the history of what people have done and informing a way to go forward, right? Whether it's a new place that you've been or tasks that are repetitive for yourself or somebody else. So as we try and crack open this black box of observability for our audience, tell us more about what happens behind the algorithms. When we say AI observability, what do we mean? And what does that observability tell us?
Very, very valid question, Jonathan. I think as we all are talking about a huge surge in Gen AI powered applications, and everybody thinks AI is probably a bunch of fast NVIDIA GPUs and some models running on top of it. But in reality, when it comes to AI based applications, you really need more than just NVIDIA or GPUs or LLMs. You have to think about much broader architecture that goes behind it. You have obviously your GPUs or TPUs architecture on top of it. Then you have your LLMs. Maybe you are using IBM Watson X, let's say, or you're using OpenAI, right? And then you orchestrate an APIs using the Llama model, you call it, or indexes. And then you have your the how do you then access that data, right? Then you have your vector databases. You use Pinecone or VB8, and then that's where the application becomes available to users. So if you look at it, the these that's the complex architecture is behind the AI application that users are accessing. So it's very important that users are getting the experience they expect from this application. And so you have from an observability standpoint, looking at your underlying infrastructure performance, looking at your API performance, looking at your database resources is really critical to make sure that you keep the lights on, provide the experience that customers are expiring, delight the customers to use this application to their satisfaction, right? So that's where observability is key. And that's what observability means, being able to monitor all the necessary mission critical KPIs that your application is dependent on.
Arthur, tell us what AI observability means to you.
Yeah, I think Manoj hit it right on it, and you kind of see an evolution on, if you look at it even a year ago, where AI was just a single prompt to a large language model, and that's what it was. And then in that case, observability is like around the edges of LLM, the latency, how many tokens it's using. Maybe for a data scientist, observability was more of the algorithm, how it's doing. But if we look at the last year with agentic frameworks and all the things around it, there's so many other pieces even before you do the prompt. There's vector databases that you use to retrieve data. There's different patterns. There's memory that you need to worry about in terms of the chat history and what context you're going to use. there's so many moving parts that it became a complex application on its own, right? So now AI, it's this huge bubble of different components working together. So the observability of each interaction is really important, because when you look at overall a user just putting a message on chat, everything that happens on the background, contributes to that user experience of latency of, am I getting, an answer in 2 minutes or in 2 seconds? Am I getting a correct answer, hallucination? So, for you to figure out all that, there's so many moving pieces that the observability of this AI system is critical in how everything is working together.
So what I'm hearing is AI observability is observing AI models, but it's also observing the applications that we use, that individuals and organizations use every single day, right? Making sure that you've got that uptime, right? Making sure my email comes in through Outlook, right? And that when I use Copilot or I use Salesforce or any other products, right, that things are responsive, things are working, we can make business decisions every single day easily. And that the compute on the back end is not falling down, right? In addition to any of the AI services I'm using, making sure that they are functioning properly, their SLAs, all right, but also that there's any issues with those in terms of security. We're seeing those things. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. I think a good comparison that I always make in my mind is, if you're using like a database to store and retrieve files, you might think of that as a black box that, hey, I just call it and it works, that's fine. But it's really important to know what's going on behind it, right? How is it writing? Is it efficient or not? What is the performance of all that? So AI is kind of like that, where at the beginning everybody looked at it as a black box that I don't need to know the details, but now people are understanding that that's such a crucial part of your path, and it can really influence the performance that overall you have, that you need to observe and treat that as just as any other service or database that you use.
We're seeing a huge surge in interest when it comes to observability, and that a lot of the big players are investing heavily in it. Why do you think this is suddenly such a hot topic to, for people to understand how this works?
So I think maybe Arthur, you can chime in as well as I go talk about it. I think you think about the evolution of moving from the internal combustion engine cars, ICE cars, to the EV, right? When you have ICE internal combustion engine cars, you're always worried about different things. You're looking at your check engine lights, and you're looking at your oil, you're looking at your the engine lubrications, you're looking at tires, what have you, and you have like probably 60 things to worry about. But now you're moving on to the EV technology, and all you get in the car, all you see is basically just one dashboard. And it sounds easy, right? Hey, I'm just worried about the dashboard and make sure everything is green, because now everything is kind of automated for you. It has looking at the different parameters, going through probably hundreds of parameters, by the way, that backend software is running to check the car's necessary information, whether it's the battery statistics or your tire pressure, or you're looking at any other the electricity, the performance metrics are necessary. But all that is done for you through software and hardware that goes behind it, and is basically easily presented to the driver, right? The person is in front, so basically at the driver's seat. Take the same analogy, by the way. It is the user experience is so important that the all these big players are challenged to offer that ease of use of the software to the customers. They can interact, but that actually increases the complexity behind the scene. So that's why people are investing into making sure they have the right observability into it, looking at how their models are performing. If they are using the cloud resources or on-prem resources, making sure they have the right architecture and right deployment architecture. If necessary, can I optimize the queries, right, to improve the response back to the user? So that's why it is such an important topic for the big players to talk about observability.
Definitely, yeah. And just to add two quick things. One is the legal side. We all heard about, lawsuits and things about using data that's supposed to be copyrighted. So if you're a big vendor providing a service that is powered by AI, you have to be really careful that your answers don't infringe, legally into data. That's a huge topic. And the second one is cost. If you look at how many tokens are being used, if you're paying per token and now you're using an agent that is making 100 more calls than before, you're going to see a huge bill if you're paying for that service. Or if you're hosting, you're going to see your GPU usage rate really go up the roof. So I think legal and costs are two big drivers for this need to know what exactly is going on with AI.
I couldn't agree more. Right, we're moving into this just an unknown space that's just rapidly evolving so fast, so quickly, so many changes. Right, and understanding what's happening, when it's happening, how it's happening, is so absolutely so critical. Arthur, when it comes to observability, in your mind, what are some of the key metrics or signals that teams should be tracking and measuring to understand what success looks like or what danger looks like, right? To your earlier point, if you're blowing through too many tokens or there's some toxicity going out, right, for an external facing application. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. So I think an AI service has all the kind of golden signals that a regular service has, and then it has more attributes. So you still worry about latency, availability, how many error codes, because those are essential. Those are kind of like the golden signals that you have. But now, as you said, we have to worry about the tokens because somebody's paying for that. You have to worry about hallucination in terms of, am I getting this right? Am I just giving something that's totally not true? Taking the feedback into account for the hallucination. I think bias is another big item, especially if it's an AI system that helps somebody decide. Think about an HR system, where I definitely don't want an HR AI helper to be biased towards a certain group or by any other attributes. So depending on the use case, I think you have to pay more attention to certain attributes of that AI than others. There's also then the data scientist side in terms of people that are really digging into that algorithm. There's probably another set of attributes that they're interested in terms of how efficient through the algorithm, what paths am I taking? Am I taking too long and therefore consuming too much energy and not being efficient, right? So there's different lenses you can look through and different attributes that kind of bubble up.
I mean,
It's interesting.
To in addition to what Arthur just added, I think one of the things that we are also seeing the skyrocketing energy prices, and as you can imagine, in order to run these longer, heavy, resource intensive, your training jobs, you require a lot of power, a lot of CPU, a lot of GPUs, a lot of memory, a lot of hardware. That itself requires a lot of the energy, right? So one of the most important thing I always recommend to keep an eye on your energy consumption. Make sure you have the right energy metrics monitored, the power metrics monitored, the cooling metrics monitored. Most importantly, the memory metric for GPU is very important, so that you have the a cost optimization strategy around the consumption of those tertiary metrics, so to speak.
No, that's a great point, Manoj, right? Want to be economical, make sure that you do have what you need. Would you agree that the flip side is also true, that if you don't need to be using the energy, if you don't need servers on, that you'd want to know that as well, right? So that you're scaling things appropriately, so to speak, right? Running a GPU 24/7 is not cheap. If it's not being used all day, maybe there's some cost savings, right? Finding the right model, finding the right compute for a problem, and being able to, observability, right, helps us see that, understand that, therefore manage it.
Right. You won't be able to manage without having the right monitoring architecture, observability architecture, right? Right from your, the underlying real-time metrics, the log information goes across applications, or the traces that are really detailed oriented from user journey, from how user clicks from one end to and goes completes the transaction at the last end. So these are really key important metrics, and in many areas, even the surrounding metrics come into picture, by the way, which we talked about, the energy metrics. Sometimes even the weather component plays into your overall user experience, because if you're running those applications to weather prone areas, which is always getting, has always some weather impacting issues that is causing, the outages. You want to be like ahead of those things, right? You want to leverage that data, use AI to proactively predict, these unexpected, what I call the unexpected maintenance that can actually help you to avoid those outages proactively.
It sounds like monitoring and observability is really key. And I know, Manoj, you've worked with a lot of different clients. I mean, given your experience, let's talk stakes. What happens when clients don't care about observability of their systems or observability of their AI systems? What are some of the risks, the hidden costs that an organization might inherit by not properly setting up and setting up their observability systems?
I think, first of all, I can't even imagine not having any sort of monitoring, by the way, right? So I think the right of the bat is like flying blind, or will you really get into the car without having a dashboard some sort and not knowing what speed you are driving, and whether if it's AV, how much battery do I have? If it's ICE engine, how much gas I have, right? You won't. And if you're on a highway without knowing anything, you can't even come back, right? So that's you don't want to go far down the journey of this modernization and not having the planning about how can I be proactively monitoring these mission critical infrastructure, identify anomalies and unusual pattern about my infrastructure, my model responses, and also identify technical issues underlying infrastructure. So if you do not have observability, you're pretty much flying blind. So I think I always encourage customers to put observability at the front and center of their journey, and that helps to transform their overall operations.
I love that analogy of it's like going on a road trip, but not having a gas gauge or not having any indicator that you might have issues with your car.
Right,
Uh,
exactly.
I mean, I'd imagine that Manoj has observability for every aspect of his home, in addition to uh,
Hey, I have
his regular daily life.
between me and my wife, we have observability pretty much for everything. Where my daughter goes, she comes back. We have all the apps on her phone. you know, so joking aside, yeah, it is important, right? You need to have some data points to make decisions on. We have seen customers bill of their infrastructure going from couple of hundred thousands to millions, by the way. And and then the after fact situation is that most of the stuff they find out is like unused, provisioned, but never decommissioned fully. The systems get decommissioned, but the storage attached to it keeps hanging around, and that shoots up the bill. If there are no defined levers set up, people find unexpected surprises of their cloud consumption bill going through the roof. And you don't have those the gauges, and what I was saying about anomalies set up. You won't you in the surprises.
I mean, Arthur, as you think about this from your perspective, right? Help me understand the role of observability in next gen data centers, particularly as it comes to, performance, sustainability.
No, definitely. I mean, I think when you think about energy consumption, is an easy way to put into perspective why you should care about the performance and what you're using AI for. Because a lot of people take for granted that, calling AI, there's a cost, a monetary cost up front, but there's also a cost in computing power, which translates into energy. Right? So if you want to be more green, you want to be more optimized and do things that have a less footprint, and therefore footprint also in your bill, you have to kind of be more aware of the attributes that go around the LLM call, how often you're calling it, for what use cases, because people suddenly find out through a bill or through legal or through something that breaks, that hey, I should pay more attention and observe more about my interactions with AI. and how that could be optimized, right? Yeah, usually the first use cases that I have is really like not optimized at all. They call LLM for everything, almost like it's free. And then something happens, like a large bill or something, and then they start going back. And now I need to observe and be more careful and maybe optimize certain places.
What are some of the most compelling use cases that you've seen for AI observability? What are some of the benefits?
I think the biggest one is knowing exactly what's going in and coming out of those AI systems in terms of, what data am I giving to the AI systems? Also, because again, to the legal aspect of it, a lot of customers, their first ask is, what data are you sending to AI? I don't want my private data. Can you, have some kind of sanitization before it goes out, right? So there's a lot of worry. I think that's what a lot of people are gravitating to, having their own models in their own enterprise because they're afraid of that. So observing what kind of data you're sending in, what kind of data is being stored, so that observability internally of, is that AI being trained in my data? Because if I'm a bank, I don't want my competitor benefiting from my interactions with AI. And then the output, right, is again with the hallucination and biases and all that we said. So there's many stages that observability, AI observability is so important to your business.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when I think about it, right, the information that's being sent to a model, the information that comes out of the model, it's important to know what's happening, not just from a legal compliance standpoint, a liability standpoint, but if somebody's using these models, they're using it for something that they believe has value. And how they're using it oftentimes will point to an issue, right? If you're using a help chat bot, a lot of people are using it. Well, what are they using it for? Right? It's an indicator of a problem that might need to be solved, right? Or within an organization, if lots of individuals are using it, well, what are they using it for? Maybe there's another issue that is something that could be solved. It is providing a value, it's providing benefits, but also at the same time, I think it's important for organizations to understand how people are using the technology, because it can point to areas that they can improve, areas that they could probably double click on and better understand a use case that needs some support. I mean, that's just my take, right?
I think Jonathan, you definitely brought up a good point. I think, it's like it's like coin, right? Like every other coin has two sides of it, right? Same technology has two sides of it. As you see a tremendous potential to, bring efficiency, costing, to bring in the productivity to your employees, or providing faster services to client. You will face those challenges about, how is my data being used, to the what degree that is being public, being publicly available, what type of cost am I paying to use those services. Is the data that I'm using, is it biased? And so I think it goes back to the topic that we're talking about, right? The yes the as much as the AI surge represent an opportunity for us, it also presents a challenge to make sure people are not misusing this, and it's not having the adverse effect on a society. And that's where observability plays a really important role. That gives you that lens that you need to analyze and adjust and tweak, so to speak, right? And hey, this is where I need to kind of pull these levers, and I need to change this dial and make sure it's in the box, and it checks all the boxes from privacy standpoint, from a security standpoint, the usability standpoint, and so on and so forth.
So far, we've unpacked why observability is a non-negotiable when it comes to deploying AI, and how it can be the difference between reactive firefighting and proactive optimization. But let's take it a step further. As AI continues to evolve, it's not just about catching problems after the fact. It's about building systems that learn from operational patterns and adapt in real time. Coming up, we're digging into what observability looks like in action, how it's being implemented in modern data centers, and how AI itself is starting to play a role in improving observability. Think platforms that not only flag anomalies, but suggest intelligent thresholds, cluster patterns, and even predict infrastructure bottlenecks before they hit. Let's jump back in. I mean, both of you have been doing observability for a long time, and can you just share with us briefly, right? How has, over the last 3 years, how has AI changed the way that observability is done? How has it influenced observability in modern data centers and across enterprise IT stacks?
One thing that I've seen change a lot is how the consumers of that observability data can kind of finally hit some of the pain points that they had. So, for example, an admin or an SRE or somebody that needs to deal with the availability of a service. Before, they used to take hours digging through the observability data, the logs, the metrics to find out why did the service go down. Now with AI, within seconds, it can go through millions of lines of logs and traces and correlate that and give you, here's the probable root cause. And then as an admin, you have to kind of double check that and you confirm it. But a lot of that, time consuming, especially if it's at 2 a.m. and you got paged out and you're barely awake and you have to sit through that, it really helps you focus on what the problem was. So we've seen a huge surge in terms of how much better these first responders to IT incidents are better equipped with AI.
If I may add, Arthur, to your point, right? Obviously, being able to improve the mean time to identify is absolutely valuable. But also, right? I mean, if you look, as we both are doing the observability space and monitoring space for in a decade plus, right? Traditionally, we used to have those monitoring tools where we will go and say, hey, historically, I want to make sure I have I would like to get alerted by at 90% threshold of disk, or I want to get alerted by if my CPU goes by, if my CPU of a server goes beyond X percentage, or and so on and so forth. It was all, and as your application changes, your infrastructure changes, you go back and keep doing the exercise manually as the things changes, and that is very laborious work. Takes a lot of the guesswork. Hey, what is the right threshold? Is it 90 too much or too low? So that's AI really take that guesswork out of you. By the way, now AI is now looking at the historical trends of your system performance, utilizations matrix, or your golden signals that Arthur was talking about, right? The latency, the errors, logs, and use that historical trend and build that baseline for you, and then let that baseline kind of automatically set what is good and what is bad and what is acceptable. So that actually takes a lot of that whole guesswork that I was talking about. That is what I think I'm seeing a huge benefit of for customers being able to use that, the predictive analytics capability to even not to worry about those guesswork anymore.
We're seeing AI be able to leverage history to surface alerts, to do pattern recognition, and and this is being pushed now. Is this now being pushed to that you've got agents that are starting to now do some auto scaling or remediation on these things? Is that where the future is, or are we already there?
We're already there. Yeah, I can, just recently we had two big conferences. There's IBM Think and Red Hat Summit, where we had a lot of announcements exactly on that. If I speak for Instana, we have the probable root cause capability where it's an agent doing all the work and it shows all the reasoning in actions. There's the remediation process that pairs with it in terms of you can create a bash script, an Ansible playbook to automate some of those recommendations. There's all kinds of agents that are doing all these different things throughout the software lifecycle, and it is here now. I think it's just a matter of how much better these agents get, how much more accurate they get. We're seeing more of communities being built around tools, with MCP, around agents, and there's more and more protocols for sharing and kind of leveraging what each other are doing. So it's really exciting time, but it's moving fast. If you ask me the same question next week or 2 weeks ago, it would be a different answer. Every week it changes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is amazing, right? That the technology is making things easier, and at the same time, we're not using less compute. We're only going to use more compute, which means we're going to need more observability, and that the challenges associated with this are only going to continue to increase. I've always been a believer in observability and known the importance of it, especially after my first few conversations with Manoj. But let's pretend that, I'm a professional and this conversation has actually convinced me. And I now am eager to engage and get observability set up in my system. Where do I start? Who should I be talking to? What are the things that I need to think about as I begin going on this journey towards having, 360-degree observability in my data center or across my tech stack?
Yeah, I mean, so Jonathan, I think I would always encourage there is the ocean of information out there, and I definitely, if you start going on to internet and start searching, probably you're going to get easily lost in this information that is going to get thrown at you. I always encourage to work with your trusted partner, the advisor that you trust in your technology decisions. Have initial workshop sessions, converge. We take the similar approach for our clients too, Jonathan, as you know. So I encourage to engage the partner you trust, engage the technology expert you always rely on. Go through the workshop identifying the low hanging fruits where you think, yes, absolutely, these are my various use cases, my marketing application, maybe my Copilot application, maybe my the HR application. Those are a couple of I think I could improve the workforce efficiency, the cost efficiency. You work with them, identify those low hanging fruit, then kind of drill down into what are some of those underlying use cases to that you can go after to and then build those projects, by the way, right? Take them as project by project and then start rolling out those capability along with observability.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Manoj. And just to add to that, I always reinforce the hands-on aspect of it. If you can try it out, Istana has free trial. A lot of vendors have free trials. There's open source libraries. So use something that you're comfortable with and just try it out. Drop the library on your server. So for example, with Instana, it's a one agent. You drop on your server. We figure out all the processes running there and start observing it. One of the things that people tell us is that I didn't even know these things were running in that VM, or that was another team. I didn't know they were talking to each other. So that getting that kind of automatic trace and automatic metric can be a light bulb that all of a sudden now you have a sense of the topology and your state and how things are interacting with each other. That's often the first reaction that people get from a observability platform. So, but you don't get that through just reading the docs. You kind of have to be hands-on, even if it's a small part of your system. Try it out, look at what logs and metrics look like, and start looking at the correlations between them. But yeah, hands-on approach is really important.
When I started my professional career and where I am today, right? The number of applications that we use every day to get work done, and whether it's sitting on a server in our server room, or if it's a SaaS product, or there's so many different systems that we're using that are talking to each other, and there's new products that are coming out all the time. When organizations are trying to decide on, I don't know, a new ERP system, a new project management tracking platform, etc. What sort of, if they're now have, after listening to the two of you, this idea that observability is key and important, would professionals be asking their vendors so that they make sure that they have quality observability built into it, or it'll integrate with an observability tool?
I mean, I can add few, and maybe Arthur, see if you find this. I think it's definitely, if you look at what Instana offers. So I think there are a couple of very unique features. I think I always kind of educate the users to understand, hey, what is the my observability platform's architecture looks like. Is it a single agent? Is it multi-agent? Can I ingest all the observability metrics, right? The performance errors, logs, changes, metrics. Can I integrate with my CI/CD pipeline for continuous discovery of microservices? As I think you give a good example, right? If you're talking to me next week, things have changed already. You might have a different answer. So you need to make sure you're not starting all over every week, every month. Can your Instana platform like Instana platform, any observability platform, can it automatically discover the ever-changing, microservices architecture? You don't want to sample, your traces. I want to make sure that you have the real-time second level granularity for your traces. So these are very, I would say, the technical strengths that you want to look for when you're looking out for observability platform for your projects.
We care about a platform that is built to do that is obviously regularly updated security patches, but also one that has the ability to discover new things. One that has a lot of knobs to turn and tweak so that an organization has that right level of granularity. Sounds like
Absolutely, and if you look at it, the all these application architectures are ephemeral. Things are changing to the minute level. You know, as the new services are being rolled out, the backend architecture has been it's a modern architecture. As right, one of the things that we as when we talk to our app modernization team, we always hear about how they're helping customers to roll out new changes, new applications, new architecture. And those are very frequent changes, right? There is no more waterfall approach of delivering your products. People are looking to an agile methodology to deliver the product. So your observability platform should be agile to adopt those changes.
from a business and value perspective, how can IT leaders measure the ROI of investing in AI observability? What are some early indicators that it's working?
Yeah, I think from executive perspective, one of the big things is the bill for the AI service that they're using, or where they're hosting. That's probably the first thing. Is if easy to set up an account with an AI vendor, but then once you get those monthly bills, you start rethinking how you're using or how your team is misusing it, right? So that observability, I think there's the monetary that's really heavy that people don't often think about, because you can go to ChatGPT and for free, right? Ask as many questions. You could spend the whole day there. You don't get a single bill, but somebody's getting a bill on the back end, right? So, and if it's your business, you're going to have to pay for it. I think that's a big one. Then the other ones are the ones that, from a user perspective, how accuracy, bias, and those other things. So if you don't have that visibility into what your AI is giving the users, you kind of just waiting for a complaint to happen or legal action to knock on your door.
I mean, what I call the slow is new down. I mean, if you see the user experience, right? If you are on your mobile phone or you're on your laptop and going to a particular application, and your response time is, let's say, a couple of minutes, what we do as a human person, immediately you switch to a different provider, a different supplier. Oh wow, their user experience is great, and then basically the slowness is basically a your customer lost to a competitor, right? So you want to avoid that experience to customers. So, and there's a direct impact, whether you may or may not see that, but if your application stays down longer, you're pretty much revenue lost, and you start losing your customers to your competitors. And moreover, also, how do I even bring the efficiency, right? I mean, everybody's talking about, hey, I would like to see efficiency in my workforce. I want to do more with my resources and enable them to do more, and so that you can improve the what I call the mean time to identification. If I'm able to improve my mean time to identification from, let's say, few hours to minutes, that's a significant savings back to your important resources, so they can focus on the business revenue projects, right? So that's the very one-to-one relationship that the observability platform like Instana brings to the customer.
Right. It's happy customer, right? Happy executive, good budget, lower bills, happy CFO, I guess, right?
That's right.
Let's end with a thought experiment, right? Let's imagine slicing a perfect cross section through an AI system and seeing everything end to end. What would be the most valuable thing to you? What would you want to understand out of that whole full picture?
Yeah. I think to me, the most important thing would be the paths and the reasoning around the algorithm of that AI. It's almost like in school when you have to show your work, and maybe the answer is slightly wrong, but you still get an 8 out of 10 because you were in the right path. It's just a little thing that you might tweak, right? But if you just put the answer there, you get 0 if it's wrong, right? So if an AI system just gives you the wrong answer, you might think it's garbage. But if you were to slice it and see that, it was almost right, he just took this wrong left turn here, and then you can tweak it. I think that would be so important to understand how it's thinking about it. It's almost like a brain, right? What pathways to the neural topology it took, and is there anything that I can do to improve it?
Yeah. And to me, Jonathan, is basically the biggest impact that that usually I see, and I'm pretty sure that most of the customers would like to see, is basically not having to browse through millions and millions of records of logs or systems or events. Can the platform automatically cluster it for me? Let it go through that noise for me and filter out only what I care about, and show me the impact of that, right? It's a very powerful, the output that I see, and excites me when I instrument all my applications from observability standpoint, and I have the entire visibility. Even then, obviously, I don't want to sit in front of the glass and keep going through these messages. Versus if I have AI, yes, I have the observability, but I also have AI now. It is pretty much helping me to pinpoint, hey, this is where you want to look for.
We want to know why it's thinking, and we want to know what it's thinking as fast as possible. Well, gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure to have this time to talk. Any last thoughts that you'd like to share with our audience?
Definitely don't fly blind.
Don't drive blind. Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds like a good advice.
Yeah, I guess, if you're watching this, a good opportunity to revisit your observability strategy. If there's anything that maybe you missed or that could have been better, good opportunity, better late than ever, to get started. And, Converge is here, Instana is here to help. Lots of tools and frameworks available.
Arthur, Manoj, thank you so much. Thanks to Manoj and Arthur for pulling back the curtain on what's often a behind-the-scenes discipline. Observability may not be flashy, but it's foundational. And as AI continues to reshape business and infrastructure, it's becoming one of the smartest investments a company can make. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Edge of IT. For more, visit us at convergetp.com. And don't forget to subscribe to Edge of IT on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your favorite shows.